I've not come here to seek revenge or anger. I've come here with love to restore the equilibrium. This is why I seek justice and recognition of our tragedy. When people talk of air tragedies around the world and terrorism, they talk of 9/11, they talk of Pan Am, Lockerbie, they talk of Korean Airways, they talk of Malaysian Airlines. Nobody ever talks about Air India Maldives. It's because Canada and India have forgotten. And because they're ashamed to speak about it, the world is ashamed to talk about it. And I want that to change. This is why I appeal to all of you to join me and all the other families to build a Kanishka Memorial Center for Learning in Canada, where we educate people everywhere on the dangers of radicalism, regardless of the religion, caste, creed, or type of event. Radicalism, the horrors of extremism, and to give people a glimpse of who the beautiful children of Kanishka were. Let us educate the children of Canada to the dangers of terrorism and make this tragedy a part of our school curriculum, whether it's in Ontario, or British Columbia, or wherever. So that we may never allow our civilization to repeat these horrific acts again. So you don't find a 17-year-old on some other bomb site waiting to collect bodies on that. I have also sent out an appeal to both Prime Minister Carney and Prime Minister Modi to have twin sister learning centers in India and Canada. And I do hope for all of us that we get one. Let this tragedy help our world make a better place for our children.
Can I know the time? Okay.
Sorry, it's a very tough subject.
So, apologies to everyone. It's hard for me to moderate this. There are two reasons for that. He's a friend. When we do these conferences, usually what happens is the tragedy is just a number on a paper. I wanted everyone today to feel the human cost of extremism. It's easy to say when you read something in a book. I'm not going to take a lot of time. And I'm going to focus on Sanjay's fight, and it's not Sanjay's fight, it's everyone's fight over here. So my first question is, do you feel betrayed?
Wow. Kushal, first of all, thank you again for this opportunity. Yes, I feel betrayed, and I feel betrayed by everyone. Not just Canada, not just India, not just the US. I feel betrayed by every human being. I felt, when I was a kid, 17 years old, I was all alone in that corner of the hospital, like I just told you. And I felt, everyone was my enemy. And everyone had conspired to do this. And over the years, I kept coming to Canada to attend the trial, to find out about the investigation. And yes, I was betrayed. I attended that courtroom and I sat at this distance from those accused or killers. And I felt robbed, I felt gutted. We were 3-4 families sitting there, and some attended every day. I had to come from India. Yes, I was betrayed because we lost that case, and for those who don't understand Hindi, if this was a case in India, we would have said big kiya saab. So translate that, we would have said, it got sold. We were sold out. The evidence was there. Some, of course, testimonies, some people died, some people recanted. But yes, I felt betrayed there. And then we had, I met Stephen Harper and Paul Martin at Ireland a few months after that. I remember attacking them both just on the ocean. I think Terry Wilowski was there. And Terry was interviewing me and I said to these guys, had these been white guys, we would have had this. And he didn't like what I said. I was a young guy. And I say a lot of things and get away with it because of my youth in those days. But I told him that, there are 331 people in this ocean who were waiting for answers. Fortunately, he became the Prime Minister some months later and he appointed Joint Major's inquiry. But what came out from the inquiry made me feel even more gutted. I found the layers and layers of hidden secrets that Canadian forces, the CSIS and RCMP had hidden for years. I found out that the Secret Service of the United States, White House knew about this. We found out that the FBI knew. And it was so gut-wrenching that anybody could have stopped this from 6 months to 6 days before this bombing. And nobody did. It's almost as though everybody really wanted it to happen. So yeah, I did feel very betrayed and I still do today.
So I want to share this fact and I want you to elaborate on this, that 2 years before the Kanishka bombing, the then Prime Minister's Office of India had officially demanded the Canadian government of that time to extradite Talvinder Singh Parmar. Can you share the reason why that was denied?
So actually it's 3 years. 1982, Mrs. Gandhi, then Prime Minister of India, had sent a extradition request for Talvinder Singh Parmar. Actually not one, 29 of them. 29 requests for his role in killing policemen in Punjab and at a bank outside Punjab. And Canada struggled to find ways to reject it and eventually rejected it on the basis that though India was part of the Commonwealth, India never regarded the Queen as their head of state. Therefore, they didn't share the same values as India, and therefore Trudeau could not send them. And that was the most ridiculous thing. And then the next thing you know that this is the same guy who plotted to bomb the aircraft, who held meetings in his house, who was tape recorded by the CSIS, planning the bombings, ordering the tickets, and eventually said, going on to Duncan, the forest, with Mr. X, who's just been found. We are now told by the RCMP, they knew about him for the last few years. He died in peace so that we could live in misery. And he just fired the bomb in Duncan, which they placed 6 days later on the aircraft. Yeah, that's the truth.
Cut to 2025. There are more than 50 that I could track. 50 extradition requests from the current government of India. And I could trace the extradition requests from 2003. I have posted, Sanjay knows about them, I've shared those names with Sanjay. Around 50 extradition requests have been officially sent to Canada. Has anyone been sent back?
Not a single one. Not a single one. And this is a joke, we're talking of for 50 now. We had 40.
I could track 50.
So there are over 150 people who are in Canada, who are known terrorists or convicted felons, murderers from India who sought refuge here. And until Canada becomes a nation serious about curbing this extremism and terrorism, that soft underbelly will always be exposed. Whether you have Tamil Tigers or Hamas, ISIS, Palestinian Liberation Force, or you name them, they're all here. They're all here in this country. They have headquarters here. And all of them take funding and succor from the Canadian people, not directly but indirectly, through drugs, through guns, through prostitution, through various things. And until we get serious, be a liberal nation. Everyone loves them. Everyone loves a liberal nation. But let's understand multi-religious, multi-ethnicism, and being liberal has its limits. Don't let the terrorists occupy your backyards. That's all I'm saying.
So, we have other families over here, also Kanishk families. If this is at least what I'm noticing, this has started, I think, 3-4 years now. Every year we have Kanishka memorials across Canada, and we have some special people who come over there now. As you know, how do the families feel when you see the yellow flags?
Kushal, unfortunately, I've never been in Canada on any of the memorial days because I go to Ireland every year. But I know I speak to the families here, and I know for a fact that it is jarring that we see Khalistani flags over the tombs of our families when we try to mourn them with prayer on that day. And sadly, fortunately, I think Daniel is something I can't see him, but Daniel was there last year, and Kushal, and a whole lot of them who fought them off, who warded them off. But I also will tell you that, and I'm sharing a personal note of disappointment. I don't mean to cast aspersions on anyone. I pray that our own communities, Canadian, Indian communities, the Jewish have been really, hats off to them, they've been really supportive. They turn out in big numbers every year. Thank you. And we need to see more Indian families out there. You need to support, you have to understand these are people of my co-family members. They've lost everything and they're scared to even show up at their own family's death memorials because they're scared of the terrorists who will be standing there to threaten them. And it's happened. It's happened in Toronto, it's happened in Vancouver, it's happened everywhere. And I for a moment just wish that I could one year just come here and deal with this. But you have so many hundreds of thousands of all of you. Please go out and keep them strong because we're a small bunch and they're not prone to violence. Having been suffered at the sword, they would carry a sword. Let's put it that way. We are still mourning 40 years later, and please allow them to mourn peacefully. Is what I say.
So just one last question, and then we can have a short Q&A. Do you think there is any hope for justice for the families?
Justice in the legal sense, frankly, and I'll be very blunt and honest, the law of double jeopardy applies. Though I know who's guilty and we know who's guilty, those people, some are dead, those that are living may never be brought to trial again. But there are other conspirators, and I know this for a fact, that your intelligence agencies and your police force, your RCMP already have enough, and they're gathering still more. This needs to be made into a federal investigation. It's too centered in one part of the country, where there is an ego clash, and I'm saying this bluntly today at your organization's seminar, where the person who lost the case 40 years ago, 30, 20 years ago, is still in charge of the crown. So obviously he's never going to let any prosecution come up which shows him up for the previous time. So that's...
Yeah. So we can have a few questions, I guess, from everyone. Yeah, from the audience. And once again, I just have one request. Let's keep our questions short, and they should be a question.
Hello, I Sanjay, your Pankaj here.
I can't see.
Here, okay.
Oh, sorry.
Not too far. I think this is a story of so many victims of this very tragic event. But I'll tell you, in mainstream, what happens in the schools here, I've seen that if you just ask that brown people, brown kids when they're studying, the story is always here, it is spread. I don't know why, but as if it's Indian government conspiracy was, and that's why this bomb they planted, and then how you must be feeling at the time when you hear this story.
Thank you. Thank you, Pankaj. That's one of the reasons I've written this book. And that's one of the reasons I'm writing a trilogy. That's one of the reasons I gave up my job 5 years earlier to get into advocacy. Because I was sickened to death listening to the crap from these, terrorists and radicals who were trying to make us believe that the Indian government blew up its own plane with its own people on board and Canadian Indian families on board. That's a lie. When we look at all the evidence, we all know who did it and what. But this is where education of children comes into being. This is what they are teaching their grandchildren, those radicals. And they're spreading little booklets. And that is why I find it so necessary. You don't hear in New York anybody saying that the American government blew up 9/11. No. Because they've had their Truth and Reconciliation Commissions, they've got the stories out there, they've got the people responsible, and they've gone and killed Osama. We need to understand that unless we educate our people, we are condemned to repeat mistakes of the past.
There was a Canadian member of parliament last year who sponsored a petition to reopen the Air India bombing investigation after 40 years. Let that sink in. Yeah. Well,
There's a question right
yeah,
Please.
please go ahead.
I think there's someone right at the back.
Let's go at the back.
Someone right at the back near the camera.
Who had their hand up?
Yeah.
Hi, I'm gonna cry. I was 15, I think, when this happened, and it's been seared in my mind ever since. I fear flying, I think, because of that incident, and every time I fly over Ireland, I'm thinking those poor souls who just blew up and fell into that cold ocean. So it has a deep impact on me. And just simple questions. A, how can those Kalistani put a bomb on a plane? Like, how's our security in our airports? And the second question is, knowing that Jagmeet Singh is pro-Kalistani, how could he win as, premier of BC? So I have, CSIS is not doing his job, and that's what worries me.
Thank you so much for your thoughts. It will shock you to know, and I didn't say that, but I lost my entire family at 17, I was orphaned. At 18, I joined and I flew in the same airline for 38 years. So I can understand what you feel, because I felt that every single year for almost 40,000 hours that I flew in my career. So it's something deep within me. I understand. And how did they get a bomb on board? There are people who've written books, Terry, Kim, I've written one. Read it. There was a series of lapses, and it changed aviation security in a great deal that day. But as the victim, and I call myself a victim here, I find it all too suspicious, and I still do. And I will probably go to my grave having this seed of suspicion in my mind. No one just records somebody plotting to plant a bomb for 5 months and then deletes all the tapes. Nobody follows a guy into the forest, watches him blow up a bomb, and then imagine he didn't do it. Nobody tracks down guys to an airport and sees them planting bags and not going. There were so many missteps, as my friend Terry Milowski would call them, because he's true Canadian. He doesn't believe in my suspicious Indian mind, but he believes they were all mistakes. But I miss him here. He would have been wonderful here. I do believe that in some way Canada has tried to correct those missteps, so to speak, but it hasn't addressed the key issues, and that's what I want. And the key issue here is not revenge. It's not putting somebody to the gallows. It is educating our next generation and the generation beyond that. And that's all I want. We don't want multi-million-dollar settlements. I don't want to hang somebody. All I want is educate your kids so that this never happens anywhere in the world, to any religion, to any caste, anyone. That's all I want.
And we have a question here, just before I pass the mic. I would like to ask the question on behalf of this gentleman. Kushal, maybe you can comment. There have been attacks on Hindu temples in Ontario, and I believe one was a Khalistani identified, and I believe that one of the members of that attack was an off-duty policeman. Can you comment as to what action's been taken, where we stand with regard to the most recent events?
Well, I'm assuming, and correct me if I'm wrong, you're talking about the Hindu Sadhan Mandir in Brampton,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
Yeah, so, yeah, that was odd. I mean, see, I'm Punjabi, so I kind of understand that mindset, unfortunately or fortunately, however we want to put it.
I think we really want to know if something is improved. Are we getting, having had 40 years to wait before?
I'm sorry to break. I'm sorry, I'm really sorry about this, but I don't want to be the guy that says this, but nothing has improved. The brazenness has just increased. At least 4 years ago, the Khalistanis had the decency not to go to an Air India bombing memorial. They are so brazen now that it took Daniel and me to go and face them last year and literally push them back. And everybody's just watching it there. It took a Daniel Boardman and a Kushal Mehra together to stand and say, no, this is the line, you don't cross that line. I don't know what the cops were doing there. I don't know. If anything happens, I become the foreign agent in Canada. If I am a foreign agent, I suck at it. So nothing is moving, and this is why we are having this conference. Somebody needs to understand that the cost of everything, whether it's an attack, there are 100 plus churches that have been burnt down in Canada. Why should I not care about that as a Canadian?
Our government doesn't care about that.
Synagogues get shot at on a daily basis. Now, look at, it's Stats Canada is the past master at fudging numbers. They couldn't fudge the hate crime numbers. So imagine if Stats Canada is showing hate crime is rising against two communities, which are the majority inside this room right now, the Jewish and the Indian community, and the Hindus. But in the Stats Canada report, they club them as Indians. I'm just being very honest. Nothing has changed on the ground, and the reason is, maybe Sanjay can explain this better. Only 17% Canadians literally know about the Air India bombing. So how does that make you feel?
That makes me feel like crap, because I've read, Shachi's earlier poll, and it was shocking that in a country where everybody called this, or the politicians called this, the Canadian tragedy, Canadians didn't know about it. I can understand, I curse people back home where I come from, that you don't know about this, or you're too ashamed to talk about this, for whatever reason, because of Punjab politics, and it's been the refrain for 40 years, frankly. But there's no excuse for Canadians not to know about it. There's no excuse for Canadians not to raise it and teach their kids about it. Believe me, there were other people also, not only Indian Canadians, on board that aircraft. And we need to realize that every nation adopts its tragedies as its milestones of history. India has done that. The America has done that. All over. Canada seems to be the only one who's not done it. And I reach out to Canadians and Canadian leaders and Canadian politicians that this is your chance. It's 40 years. Maybe 40 years too late, but in the life cycle of a civilization, we are never too late to make amends to the people who died on that day, and to atone for all the other people who have been victims or martyrs to terrorism.
Just an elaboration on the same comments. Last year you said there were, on your event of June 22nd or 3rd, right? The Khalistani terrorists did show up, but this year they didn't. Nobody showed up.
They did actually.
Zero. They showed up in BC, but not in Ontario.
And in BC they were controlled. The cops.
Not in Ontario. Zero show up. So that's an improvement.
It is. Yeah.
Right? Other events happened since last 6-7 months, and we have secured those events. They didn't show up. They knew we are coming here. They wouldn't show up. So it's a change. Definitely an initiative was taken by us to rectify the wrong. But that's what we're doing.
Can we have questions if we can do it, because we got to move to the next panel?
I think we have to move to the next one.
Yeah, so I'm really sorry. Sanjay is going to be here. You can chat with him later on. But before I wrap up, I just want to give Sanjay, if you want him to have a last word or something.
Well, I can see there's still a lot of hands, and I don't want to run out of time because there's another two panels I think we're waiting. So I want to thank all of you for coming here. I want you to please consider reaching out. There are people who are putting out petitions for learning centers, memorials. It's the need of the hour. I don't live here 24/7. I've flown down from India, but wherever in the world this comes up, I will be there. Wherever in the world it's a memorial against terrorism, I will stand up for it and support it. Not because I have a vested interest, but because I identify with you. Whoever you are, whichever religion, we need to stand up together against terrorism. So please, do this. Thank you, and thank you very much.
Thank you, Sanjay and Kushal. Sanjay, you're very brave and courageous. And due respect, thank you for coming. We are off schedule, but we're going to continue. We're not taking a break right now. Our next panel, under the title Exploitation of Immigration Loopholes by